Having served with the presiding officer on a committee, we've had many discussions about nuclear power. And this morning I introduced the Nuclear Waste Policy Amendments Act of 2008. And I've said many times on the Senate floor that we do have a crisis in energy and that we need all of the above. We need nuclear energy, but we also need clean coal technology. We need oil and gas. We need renewables. We need all of the above. And I have felt very strongly, and I know that there is a disagreement on that issue, even within our committee. But I am concerned about the continued delays in opening our nation's repository at Yucca Mountain, that would hinder the resurgence of nuclear energy in the United States. It seems like right now we're making a major breakthrough. People who are objecting to nuclear energy just a few years ago are now realizing that it is clean, it is safe, it is abundant, and not that I use France as our model very often, but in this case they're between 80 and 90% nuclear, and they've done the right thing. A bit of history on this thing: the Nuclear Waste Policy Act of 1982 established a program to locate and develop a repository for nuclear waste, including both defense waste legacy from the Cold War and civilian spent fuel. In 2002, after 20 years of research, the President recommended to Congress that Yucca Mountain should be developed as the repository. The state of Nevada objected. I wasn't surprised to see that would happen, but it did, and that certainly it is their right to do so under the Nuclear Waste Policy Act. However, Congress passed a joint resolution affirming or reaffirming the administration's recommendation of Yucca Mountain with strong bipartisan majorities in both houses. Mr. President, the location has been decided. The debate is no longer in existence whether the repository should be built at Yucca Mountain. That decision was made in 2002. The task that remains is to develop a repository that protects public health and safety and the environment, a permanent solution for our nation's nuclear waste. It's high time that we accomplish this task. Now, this is very significant. We've passed laws and resolutions to do it. We've collected over $27 billion, that's with a B, $27 billion from electricity consumers to pay for it. And the courts have reaffirmed and have affirmed that we have the legal obligation, not the legal right to do it, the legal obligation. Now, many people, I'm frustrated that the Department of Energy is 20 years behind schedule. However, I'm pleased that the DOE appears to have made significant progress in the past few years and will hopefully file a license application this year despite the persistent assault on program funding. I understand that opposition to Yucca Mountain remains, advocating that we abandon it in favor of interim storage. There have been many proposals on interim storage, and I expect that there will be more in the future. But we have an interim storage right now at 121 locations in 39 states. Now, make no mistake, interim storage is a temporary fix. It forces future generations to solve a problem that we ought to be resolving today. Mr. President, it's time to move forward with a permanent solution at Yucca Mountain. I've visited the site. I have a question for those who would want to abandon Yucca Mountain. If you can't build a repository in the middle of a mountain, in the middle of the desert, where should it be? Let's think about this for a minute. The logical first step to finding a new repository site is to begin by reevaluating sites that have been considered before. Now, I have a map, which is not here, but it'll be here before I finish talking, showing the 37 states that the DOE and its predecessor, the Energy Research Development Administration, have evaluated in the past based on the presence of favorable geologic formations. Those states are Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Connecticut, Georgia, Idaho, Kansas, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, and it goes on, including my state of Oklahoma, 37 of the 50 states. Now, 37 states have been considered as possible candidates for developing a repository. Does it really make sense to abandon a site where we've already invested 25 years and $8 billion before the Nuclear Regulatory Commission even considers it, only to turn around and start from scratch, reevaluating sites in 37 states? I don't think so. As the generation that has benefited from the use of nuclear energy and resulted in spent fuel, I believe it's incumbent upon us to manage spent fuel in a manner that is fair to the current generations and generations to come, and the bill that I'm introducing now would do just that. DOE has indicated there are legislative positions they need to complete the licensing process and begin construction of the repository of our electricity consumers that they have paid some $27 billion for already. Senators Domenici and Craig introduced their New Way bill, S-37, which includes those provisions with the jurisdiction of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. My bill includes the remaining DOE provisions that are within the jurisdiction of my committee and our committee, the Environment and Public Works Committee. But my bill goes beyond that. My bill will incorporate a flexible framework for future generations to apply their knowledge and innovations to improve the repository. The task at hand is to develop a safe repository using state-of-the-art technology and cutting-edge science. The trouble is, technology that is state-of-the-art now won't be 50 years from now, much less 100 years from now. When you're making decisions on how to develop a facility that will be safe for up to 1 million years, we should not limit ourselves to science and technology that's available today. We should establish a flexible framework that incorporates technological advances into the facility design over time, one that allows our grandchildren and great-grandchildren to improve on the project that we've started. In other words, we know that even though we are using the million-year benchmark, that things are going to happen next year, the year after, where we can have dramatic improvements. But the one thing we've got to do is make the decision today, or keep with the decision that's already been made. Several international bodies, including the National Academy of Science and the International Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development's Nuclear Energy Agency, have advocated repository development in stages that will incorporate technological advances over time. Just what we're talking about. The reformed licensing process in this bill integrates that concept into the current licensing process. My bill reforms the licensing process for authorizing construction operation and closure of the repository. And I would have to say, Mr. President, we've come a long ways already on this. We already have, when I became chairman of the subcommittee within this committee on clean air, we had not had an oversight committee hearing on the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for 12 years. And I don't care what the bureaucracy is, you have to have oversight over these bureaucracy. Well, we've come a long ways now. And the threshold for approval of construction of a repository is based on a determination that the facility could be safely operated for 300 years. During this time, a long-term science and technology program will be established to monitor and analyze the repository's performance and to conduct research into technologies that would improve the facility. The repository license will be amended every 50 years, at a minimum, to incorporate these improvements. During this phase, waste would remain retrievable so that future generations may recover valuable material or upgrade disposal systems, for example. When the DOE applies to permanently close a repository, it must then demonstrate compliance with the EPA's radiation standard before ceasing operations at the site. Until then, the facility will be subject to the strict NRC regulation and oversight as an operating facility. Now, today this program has been litigated into a corner. After several lawsuits, the EPA has responded by drafting a radiation standard for 1 million years. That's right. Based on what we know today, DOE must prove a reasonable expectation that Yucca Mountain will be safe for 1 million years before DOE can even begin building a repository. This is